I am so pleased to welcome members of Western Farmworkers Association to our liturgy today as we celebrate the Day of the Dead. When you think of liturgy as we do, that liturgy is the participation by the people of God in the work of God, then the liturgy that Western farm workers do is your constant attention to bringing justice to your members through advocacy, through food, clothing, and medical service distribution, through community organizing and celebration. We participate in your liturgy throughout the year, and we do this because we are grateful to the service and seasonal workers for the enormous service they do for Oregon. And we acknowledge with sadness that there is a long way to go before they will see economic justice for themselves and for their families. We welcome you to our liturgy to share with us our celebration of the gift of death and resurrection, which is at the heart of our faith. In this liturgy, we will share our love for each other and for you, and for the life which we have been given. Thank you. Thank you for allowing us to share in your liturgy. And thank you even more for sharing in ours. We heard from the book of Leviticus today, "You shall be holy, for the Lord your God is holy." Here God is speaking to Moses as he gives new laws, new commandments. Living by these commandments in the way in which the people Moses had led out of Egypt is difficult, but it is the way they are to become holy. They are to be apart from the ways of the world that they're used to. They are to be unlike everything they have known as the way of life and live instead as God lives. God's holiness is concerned, as we heard, with love and with justice. And for those people Moses was leading, those people who had been slaves in Egypt, those people who as yet had no land to call their own, the idea that they must treat each other radically different and better than the ways that they had been treated, for those people, these commandments must have been incredibly difficult to comprehend. The generational trauma they had endured in a world in which only a very few people had any personal rights at all, let alone sufficient resources to meet their basic needs. This generational trauma would have left them with very little capacity to imagine themselves as holy, let alone to act in holy ways. Their struggle, and the struggles of the generations that followed, live in the stories of the Old Testament and have been passed on to us. Their struggle and the struggles from then to us, to live apart from the unjust and merciless ways of the world, to imagine and live in holy ways, is the story of our lives as well. We are still struggling to find justice for everyone in our country and in all countries. We are still struggling to be good neighbors to each other, to the people who come to this country looking for shelter, to the people of the world who are in such need of help. And others of us are still struggling to imagine what it could be like to have neighbors who love us, neighbors who demand justice for us. The Day of the Dead is a commemoration we have inherited from our neighbors in Mexico, whose ancestors understood that death is just the next step in the cosmic journey for all of us and is to be celebrated. I think that they also must have understood that grief is meant to be a communal experience, that the remembering of our loved ones who has died is more than we can manage alone. Remembering a beloved is a sad, wistful, desolating experience. Grief sweeps in like the high tide, knocks us down, and takes our breath away. Without grief, though, without it, there is only numbness. There is only cynicism and apathy. But remembering together pushes back the high tide of loss and despair and starts to repair the broken heartstrings. Remembering together pulls us back in relationship with each other. The spiritually lively indigenous peoples of ancient Mexico had a liturgy for grieving and remembering. They created a day when, in their belief system, the dead would revisit the living, and everyone would celebrate and grieve together. And this day is full of flowers and butterflies and food and candles and pictures and music. But above all, there are tears and there is laughter. And this way of remembering has endured for 3,000 years. Day of the Dead celebration remains a vibrant spiritual and physical liturgy today. You shall be holy, for I, the Lord your God, am holy. Jesus puts it to the Pharisees in Matthew's gospel that the Messiah is the Son of God. That is, God, the Holy One, lives in the Messiah. Therefore, the Messiah is also holy. The Messiah, who is a human being in whom God is living, clearly demonstrates that loving the neighbor is the way we are to be holy. But we are to keep the commandment to love the neighbor not merely to fulfill the law, but because now the Messiah, the Holy One, is part of the fabric of human life. God's holiness lives within us through Jesus, who is connected to all of us. Now, the definition of neighbor, as the Gospel's witness, includes the whole body of humanity, not just the people in our faith group. Holiness is active. Holiness acts through love. The brilliant Jesuit scientist Teilhard de Chardin said, "Love is the threshold to another universe." Chardin was talking about the interconnectedness of all beings and the way that love helps us to realize that we are not self-contained selves in any way. It is love which makes it possible to realize that we do not belong to ourselves. We are not singular beings. We are part of the whole web of the cosmos and of God. Our lives are not ours to keep. They are gifts to us to inhabit for a while, and they are meant to be given and given and given again to each other and to the rest of creation for as much and for as long as we can. Remembering our dead, their love for us and ours for them, remembering our ancestors, their struggles, their victories, their faith. Remembering them connects us to each other and to life at its core, which is God. The invitation of this gospel and the examples of our ancestors is for me not to waste our time on feeling powerless about the state of the world. We are not powerless. We are merely blind to our own capacity. Every movement, every word, every touch, every look has more impact than we can ever measure. Let us move toward each other, no matter how far apart our thinking or divergent our ways, because we are knit together in the mystery of dying and rising. In the words of the ancient indigenous people of Mexico, "For bones are like seeds. Everything that dies goes into the earth, and from it new life is born in the sacred cycle of existence." Thank you. Thank you for allowing us to come close to you in your work. You have touched our hearts and opened our minds. We are far from really being with you, but we are on the path with you. What you do and what you believe has helped us to understand so much more about how the world is working here and now. Thank you for being our neighbor.